Now let's go across to the management at Maruti. Shashank is now with us. Shashank, thanks so much for taking out time for us. Can you first start by the industry outlook going ahead, especially considering that it's the festive season? How are wholesale volumes looking like? And reports to suggest that we are likely to have a good festive season across Auto Pack.
Yeah, so you're right. Actually, September was pretty strong. In fact, the highest wholesale month ever in Indian auto industry history at 356,000. That's it. And H1 also for the industry was the highest ever any half of any year so far, 1.937 million. So that's also a remarkable growth over last year, 40%. That's of course because Q1 of last year was affected a little bit because of the COVID. Going forward, I think the industry expectation for the whole fiscal year is in that range of 3.75 to 3.85 million against 3.07 million that we saw last year. So still quite a good growth, I would say, over last year is expected. As far as your question on October retail sales is concerned, yes, October retail sales should be strong, given that there are almost 800,000 bookings which are pending in the industry, 412,000 of which are of Maruti Suzuki. So as long as the production is in line with the underlying demand pattern that we have observed, we should see a strong October as well. Going forward, though, we will have to watch out for other signs in the economy, like higher interest rates, if they are reflected in the bank rates for the retail loans for auto. It could have a negative impact because 80% of the industry sales in retail is actually through financing.
When we talk about the waiting period, what we are hearing that across spaces waiting period has come down. Can you talk to us more about that? Is supply chain easing in, which is leading to waiting period coming down?
Yes, so waiting periods, you're right, has cooled down for many of the models because, as you know, the semiconductor supply situation has become better. Production is on an overall level higher, and that's the reason why you see the record dispatches in September, in H1, in this quarter. This quarter actually was 1 million plus. So that's possible only when there is dispatch, which is possible when there is production, which is possible when the semiconductor component supplies are available. So as things have gone better, there are models where the waiting periods have come down. In fact, in the industry, the stock levels have gone up from about 119,000 in 1st April to currently around 238,000. So, but that's gone for some models where production has been heavy. For other models, also there is since the semiconductor issue is not fully solved, we have seen the pending bookings very large, as I just mentioned, and therefore the waiting period is also high. If you want to have a sense, as you asked for what is there for which models are in waiting for Maruti Suzuki, we have the Ertiga, the XL6, the Brezza, the Vitara, the Desire, the Swift, etc., which are having a longer waiting period. Whereas the 1 liter models, we have been able to produce much more, and therefore there the waiting periods have come down. This includes the Espresso, the Wagoner, 1 liter, the Alto, as well as the Celerio.
SUV launches have been pretty high, and it's also got a great acceptance from the market. Can you just talk to us about the shift in the SUV? What are the new launches in the pipeline?
So the demand pattern, if you see for this for September month, around 37% of the industry was hatch. In fact, the number one model was a small car, that is the Alto. By far, 25,000 almost was the sale for the Alto last month, and by far the number one model. The number two model also was the Wagoner, which is also the smaller hatch, and number three was the Baleno, which is also a hatch. So the top three models are all hatches in the industry. I'm not talking of Maruti alone, but across the industry. So the demand is pretty strong, I would say, even there in terms of the overall volume. However, there seems to be still the growth in SUVs coming through, and this month was no different. September, almost 43% of the overall industry was SUV, and last year it was about 40%. So the trend towards increased consumer proclivity towards SUV segment continues, and we expect it to continue for some more time.
Can you talk to us about the export growth and specifically for Maruti, any challenges due to currency inflationary pressures across the world?
So at the moment, we seem to be going okay. I would say last year was, of course, a record year for us for dispatches for exports, 238,000. And in H1 of last year, we were at around 102 or 103,000. And this year, we are around 135, 136,000. So we have actually seen a good growth of almost 22, 23% in the export sector as well. We do hope to match last year's number or even exceed them. On the overall economic front, where there seems to be a negative on global in many countries, like in Europe, for example, their exports are of course not there. So in that sense, we have escaped that negative economic conditions in Europe, in US, where our exports are not there. However, going forward, it's possible because the world is globalized. You could see economic woes spreading to other countries like Latin America, the Middle East, Africa, where we have the maximum exports. So we're just waiting and watching. Although, as I said, this year we expect to have similar or even higher numbers in exports.
How would you essentially look at the CNG side of the market as well? Prices have been hiked. What is the sort of impact that you see on demand?
Yeah, that's a very important question. CNG is obviously a very good option for consumers because of the running cost being just 2 rupees 60-70 paise against 5 rupee 10 paise for a petrol or a diesel. However, the running cost advantage was much higher when the CNG prices were lower. And as the CNG prices increase faster at a rate faster than the diesel or petrol prices, then obviously the running cost advantage gets reduced. And we have therefore seen a little bit of reduction in terms of the fresh bookings that we are getting for CNG of almost about a 10-12% reduction. However, the number of bookings still pending for CNGs continues to be large, around 125,000 out of that 412,000 that I mentioned at the beginning of this program. And that we are trying to increase the CNG production. But you are right, directionally speaking, if the gas prices increase higher and the running cost comes down, then obviously it's a negative for overall demand for CNG vehicles.